Hi, Delis here for the Lily Pad, and we are going to be talking this in the Kitschke birthday by also I'll be using her It's a Beautiful cards. I'm going to be using these sprays, and I am going to be using her That's Life word arts for the spray here. This week I wanted to talk to you about gradients and how to color and how to use them. I use them in mainly two different ways. I use them to either color doodles or word arts or sprays, or I use them to bring light into a page that it's already finished. So let's start by bringing, let me show you where the gradient is. It's right here. If you don't see it, maybe it's under your paint bucket. Usually your paint bucket is the default, so click on it and then pick the gradient tool, and that it's going to change over here, your top pull down menu. And if you notice, you have two colors here. You're going to have your foreground and background colors that are going to be intermixed and blended in here. If you want to change that, just change your foreground and background colors. Those are the colors that I'm going to be using. Then you have the option of picking if you want a linear gradient. Let me show you, add a layer. Always want to start in a brand new layer to do this. A linear, if you go, you click, as the longer you make this, I'm keeping my finger pressed. The longer you make that line when you're picking your gradient, it's the size of the blending area. So you see how big this blending area, it starts around here and then ends around here. That's how long my line was. So let's try now. I'm going to make a little tiny line. I just click, press, and release. And this gradient is going to have a very small blending center, because that's this line, that's what decides how big that gradient is going to be. So see how tiny it is. Okay. And the reason that you're having, as you noticed, let me go back, I'm sorry, because I was using the reflected gradient, and we were talking about the linear one. Linear one is the same thing. See, so that's the size of your gradient, but you have two colors. It's a matter of how you start them, up and down or side to side. It's the size of your gradient, right? Then you have your radial, which again, this is the size of how much blending there's going to be. It's going to be a circle. See, that's the blending. How big that big blend is going to be. And this one, I haven't found a good use for this blend mode, for this gradient mode. It's called an angle gradient. See, that's a 1, 2, and a third blend, and then the blend of all three in there. And then there's a reflected one, which is going to give you background, foreground, background colors. The same if you go the other way. You see that here, the little bit of the background, foreground, and background. Maybe that wasn't a good. Let me put it in the center so you can see it more clearly. Background, foreground, background. And then there is the diamond gradient, and that exactly creates a diamond effect. Okay. So let's go. If I come and say I'm going to use the reflected, I kind of like having the foreground, the background come peeking in from both sides. In this case, you can do it in an angle like this. See? And then you can come over here over my, and I just mask it, and you see how I color. I went from a black doodle to a colored doodle. And here, this is another look. This is having the colors vice versa, having the aqua as the background and the yellow as the foreground. So either one, I like them both. Okay, and so that's sample one with a word art. Now another thing is that I like to do is sometimes I will recolor some things with a gradient. So in this case, I created, okay, oops, sorry. Let me get this one out. Okay, so this is the gradient that I created, right? And then I moved it over to where my object is. I want to color this ribbon bow, kind of crescent bow. So I put it on top of it, and then I go, in my Mac, it's Command Option G to mask to that object. That's not what you want. That is actually not good, right? Because you can't see any of the shades and the texture of the ribbon. So you go over here, you select color, and color is gonna let you use put more emphasis on the shadows. The other options you could do hue, but I find that with hue you cannot achieve the same, you lose a lot of the highlights in the object. So in this case I do have it, I pick both the gradient and the bow, and then pick the little link layer, so when I move them around they move as one item. See? If I hadn't done that and I try to move it, I have just don't like them. If I try to move it, what it's gonna move the gradient. Which you could, if you wanted to see, you know, sometimes I go and see, oh, you know what, let me see, maybe I don't want so much blue, so let me click on and I'll move some. Maybe I just want to highlight on the side. So you can play around with it. That is perfectly fine. And that's exactly what I do. I like playing around when I'm scrapping. The other thing that I did was, we talked about coloring our spray splatters. Oh my god, I had trouble with that one. So here I have it in normal. I just added another reflected, and then I go Option Command G for the Mac, and I just color that orange splatter into colors that I kind of wanted to be more muted and not have so much of the orange in it. And then I also saw this awesome spray from Valeria, and I loved it, but they're not the colors that I want to use. So I went again, I created a gradient, moved it because I wanted to have both of the colors in there, and then I mask it, and you have a completely different look, something that matches better for your kids. So this way you can match any other spray splatters that you have in other kits and make them work better for you, and they don't have to be just one plain color. You can make them with a gradient. The other thing that we talked about was how to add light into your pages. Now, I'm going to show you here in this page, but it's not as clear in this page as I'm going to show you in a different one. If I like doing this with, you can either do it with a radial, or you could do it with the diamond gradient. What I do is I pick, I don't pick white, I pick a light gray and a dark, and I don't pick black, I pick a dark gray. You could move from black to white, so it's your personal preference. This is mine. After I do it, the reason I'm having it this way is because my light comes at a 45-degree angle, so for my shadows, so I'm following that rule for my addition of light. And then I come here, I select my layer, and I come down here and I pick something like an overlay. An overlay in this case, you see how the light is coming? Let me turn it off and on. The shadows more on one side. So this is a little bit bright, you could lower it down, or you could go to soft light, which soft light will still let you see the light coming in, but not as dark. You could do this with any of your pages, and it gives you just an extra detail that is just wonderful. Let me show you in this sample here. This is my original page. Let me make it smaller so you can see it better. Change. This is my original page. And then this is adding the light from the right. See, even the blue star right here changes color. And then you can make it more dramatic. In this case, I make a gray and red one. And I would actually put this one, I would lower the opacity on this one even a little bit more, because this is 100%, that's a lot. So I would lower it to like 30%, and then maybe put this behind that piece of paper, so when I clip my picture in there, it's not so much red, but it gives you an and just a really nice detail. In this case, I have two different radial gradients working at the same time. Here's the one with the red, and here's the one with the gray. So that is how I use gradients.